Welcome to our little deep dive today on NFTs versus traditional art. It's such a fascinating collision of, the digital frontier and centuries-old art forms.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get into this. So, what really sets traditional art apart when we stack it up against NFTs?
Well, traditional art, think canvases, sculptures, those tangible masterpieces like Van Gogh's Starry Night, has this timeless essence, a physical presence that connects deeply with cultural
Yeah,
heritage
exactly.
and history.
Right, it's that tactile connection that, makes you feel the weight of history in every stroke.
Exactly. And in contrast, NFTs transform art by, well, taking it off the wall and putting it on the blockchain. This shift is revolutionary. It challenges our classical notions of value and ownership.
So basically, while traditional art is all about the physical and emotional heritage, NFTs are redefining art into these unique digital assets, right?
Yes, precisely. NFTs, or non fungible tokens, are digital representations, each with like a unique cryptographic signature stored on a blockchain, usually Ethereum. This creates
Right.
an assured sense of scarcity and authenticity.
And that uniqueness is kind of like the crown jewel. They're one of a kind, which is what gives them their value contrast to, say, traditional art that can be priceless because of its history.
Exactly. It's like um, traditional art carries with it centuries of, cultural significance, while NFTs let artists directly monetize their
Yeah, I
creativity in a
see.
whole new ecosystem.
Now, there's another layer to this conversation, the digital influence on traditional art. What's your take on that?
Oh, absolutely. Digital technologies have opened up new mediums such as digital painting, 3D printing, virtual reality experiences. The list goes on. This digital revolution not only expands the ways art is created, but also democratizes access through online platforms.
I mean, the fact that artists can now reach a global audience without having to rely solely on gallery representation is pretty groundbreaking.
Yes, but here's the thing. While this digital shift boosts accessibility, it also stirs up debates about um, the authenticity and sincerity of digital forms versus that, well, earthy quality of a physical artwork.
Right. So then NFTs come in as this next level matador in the art world, challenging norms by offering both accessibility and digitally assured uniqueness.
Exactly, it's like they allow artworks to be dynamic, sometimes even divisible into smaller units through fractional ownership, which is pretty alien compared to the, one of a kind, singular traditional art pieces.
Fractional ownership. So basically, instead of owning an entire painting, multiple people might own pieces of it, sort of like owning shares, right?
Yes, exactly. And this makes art investing more accessible to a broader public, unlike the traditional market that often remains, well, elitist and financially out of reach for many.
Yeah, I get that. But here's my thought. While NFTs democratize access, isn't there a risk that the crypto lingo and high transaction fees might actually create a barrier for some potential artists and collectors?
That's a fair point. Um, the NFT sphere does have its own exclusivity issues. The requirement of cryptocurrency understanding and sometimes steep fees can regrettably limit entry.
True, true. And then there's also the elephant in the room, environmental concerns. People have raised serious issues about the energy consumption in the NFT creation process.
Absolutely, the proof of work blockchains, which are energy intensive, spark significant environmental debates. Some artists are actually against NFTs for this very reason.
That's a biggie. However, isn't there also a counter argument that digital art, regardless of NFTs, expands the way art reaches us, potentially reducing the need for physical transport and infrastructure?
Yes, you could say that. It's like, despite the energy concerns, digital distribution can be more eco friendly in other ways. There's a trade off between traditional shipping, physical galleries, and the digital realm.
Right, complex indeed. And about the conversion of traditional art into NFTs. This seems like a blend of old and new. How does that work practically?
It's fascinating, really. Artists can um, take their physical artwork, digitize it using high-quality scanning or photography, and then utilize digital tools like Adobe Creative Suite to ensure the digital version captures every intricate detail before minting it as an NFT on platforms like OpenSea or Rarible.
So essentially, an artist can straddle both worlds, selling a physical piece or its digital twin, sometimes even offering collectors a choice like Damien Hirst's The Currency.
Spot on. This kind of dual release blurs the boundaries between the tangible and the digital, challenging us to rethink what ownership and value truly mean in art.
Exactly. But interestingly, even with such innovations, traditional art still holds a mystique that, you know, carries historical narratives and cultural commentary, which some argue NFTs can't fully capture.
That's a valid critique. Traditional artworks have that aura, that long history that contextualizes them in ways a digital file might not. Yet NFTs bring a new kind of narrative, one rooted in technology and modernity.
Yeah, I see your point. Now, there's this nagging question, though. If you own an NFT, is that really owning the art? Sometimes it feels like all you own is a token, while the actual copyright might still be with the artist.
Exactly, and that's a core debate in the space. Ownership in the NFT world is more about verifiable digital scarcity than outright control over reproductions or intellectual property.
That's quite a twist, which leads to an interesting paradox. While NFTs offer direct monetization and global reach for artists, they might also commodify art in a way that strips away its deeper cultural or emotional significance.
Right. And here's where I respectfully challenge that point a bit. Could it be that this new form of ownership actually opens up artistic expression, enabling artists to connect with tech-savvy audiences in novel ways?
Yes, I can see that, though it might not resonate with, say, the purists. True, the traditional art community often values that tactile heritage experience over a digital file, which might seem like less authentic to them.
Exactly. But it's not necessarily about superiority. It's more of an evolving dialogue between two coexisting forms. Both bring value in their own right, even if one leans more into cultural heritage and physicality, while the other flaunts innovation and accessibility.
Well said. And speaking of evolving, the market dynamics are shifting too. I mean, look at Beeple's sale of Every Day's The First 5,000 Days for a jaw-dropping $69 million. It really highlights how these digital creations are like skyrocketing values that the traditional market sometimes struggles with.
Yes, that's a perfect example. It shows that while digital art can democratize in some ways, it also introduces huge financial gaps that mimic the elitism seen in traditional art circles.
Yes, exactly. So, where do you see this heading, especially with more artists and collectors entering the NFT space?
I think we're headed toward a future where both realms, traditional and digital, not only coexist but actually enrich each other, like two different flavors in the same art feast. It's challenging our classical definitions and making room for broader
That
expressions of
sounds promising.
creativity.
Absolutely. Embracing both the historical depth of traditional art and the innovative dynamism of NFTs could, pave the way for a more inclusive and expansive art world.